This is I Love Black People Radio on HUR Voices, Sirius XM Channel 141. I Love Black People is more than a radio show. I Love Black People is a call from our ancestors to protect us from racial profiling all across the world. Go to iloveblackpeople.com and become a member today. Membership empowers you to live fearlessly and protect Black people globally from racism and xenophobia. Join us today and become a member of our global network with an online global green book with Black-owned and Black-friendly businesses to protect you and your community. Membership is free, and with you, we will become 10 million strong worldwide. I am because we are. Special thanks to AFLAC for supporting I Love Black People Radio.
Greetings, amazing, dynamic, wonderful. I love Black people listeners. We appreciate all of you and your feedback and your constant communication. Definitely those who've been reaching out via email, info@iloveblackpeople.com. Thank you for your comments and definitely for a lot of your recommendations and feedback. All this is helpful for us to continue to build and to literally create the world that we're willing and wanting to live in. So much of what we're doing and continue to do with your support is literally um, discussing and involving people throughout the global um, uh, diaspora that are interested in making sure that we as a people are doing well and that we're making sure that we're protected from all the racism and Afrophobia that might be in the world. That I mean, I say might, but as we know, it's in the world. It's important that we take the time and really just show our level of gratitude and thankfulness. So many things happening in the world with the violence, and there's in the media, of course, they prioritize certain people's violence over other people's violence. And we know that the issue of violence is something that's happened to all of us everywhere. Being based in DC, based in Harare, Zimbabwe, based in different parts of the world, we all are facing issues. And we want to make sure that we do also say we're thankful. Wanted to do what things I do with our team at I Love Black People. If it's three or more of us, we always start off our meetings with a prayer. And of course, I'm not here to push any particular religion or any particular philosophy as it relates to that. But we want to make sure that we stop and just take time out to actually be thankful. And I say that, and this is interesting. Again, I'm Baptist, and I'm a member of Union Temple Baptist Church, which is in Washington, D.C. Been a member since 1994. That's actually when I first came to D.C. Reverend Willie Wilson was my pastor. And one of the things I think is important that we sometimes forget, and I know, you know, many of you are listening to this via Sirius XM, and you many of you have done well in life and have made it through some of life's challenges, and we pray about what we want, and we pray with our gratitude. What I'm you know This week I went to church, and let me just say this. I know a lot of us with the COVID, you know, haven't been in services as much as we were before. Well, I probably should have been going to church more anyway. But of course, COVID made it even, where you couldn't go. And many churches have seen a change of their attendance because of that, and a lot of changes. And a lot of stuff went online, and now there's hybrids. And I know my church, there's a YouTube live as well as actually being in person. And I think the thing in person that was really great was just the fellowship you can miss, being around that energy. I think that energy is real. Like, I think sometimes we think that you can virtually do things the same way as in person, but the vibrations and the energy was it was really great to be back in church, with my wife, and it was just a great experience to just to take a time out. And one of the deepest things that happened in the service was, just thinking about being in that same church when I was struggling to get out of college and struggling to get a job, struggling with campaigns. It made me think about how hard I would pray when I was going through these things, and just how amazing God has been. Like, looking back, I know we get to a certain point in life. So I say 94, now I'm 54. So wow, it'll be 30 some years since I've been a member of the church come 2024. Wow. Like, just in a blink of an eye, how life will go by. And to all my Gen Xers out there, shout out, and to the to Gen Z, God bless you, and to our baby boomers, we thank you. With that being said, it's one of those things where now I start thinking about so many things that I prayed for actually happened, and it's through grace, not through just some type of I thought it through, but I don't think we think enough about how our prayers have been answered, and that our ancestors and our parents have done so much, but God has really driven us. And when we make it, sometimes, of course, we say thank you. But I'm saying, this particular weekend gave me like this particular Sunday gave me like a real like I didn't do an audit like, oh, checks, God did this for me, that but literally just looking back and being in the same pews where you really were praying so hard for certain things to happen, and to now look back and they actually happen, and it's just how amazing God is and how this experience has been. And I think sometimes we think about the things we didn't receive or that didn't happen, and that kind of sometimes kind of distorts how life can really, be so amazing. But the fact that there's some things that you didn't know how they were going to work out, but for your faith in God, and then they manifest. It's just amazing. And I think, again, looking at life, and we all have had our ups and downs. And I know we go through, I mean, we'll continue. This thing is not over, so we're still in it. And just to know that God is real and these results are real. And it's almost like what's next, and just thinking about how I think the sister pastor was talking about having ridiculous asks, like praying for things that are amazing and miraculous. And I think whatever season this is for you, I think it's important that we stay connected, and that we know that whatever we're going through, there's been things that we've done to make it through. I remember I went bankrupt, and they were taking my house. They took it, and, I prayed on it. I kept praying on it, and things didn't work out the way I exactly prayed. They actually probably worked out better. Now, of course, I didn't want to go bankrupt, but my point is the prayers I made, when I look back and now see where I am today, I'm thankful and grateful for what God has done through my life, through all the people who've been in my life to make it possible. So thank you, and thank you to all my friends and family. I just want to say that out loud to all the folks that have been a part. And I think we don't do that sometimes enough. Just say thank you. This is small little words we learned in kindergarten, preschool, but thank you still has a lot of power. I think sometimes we learn a lot of fancy words, right? But thank you is pretty basic, and I think it's something that still has a lot of power in that, and just being thankful and being grateful. So, with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and also talk about some of the things we got going on here at I Love Black People. Again, we talked about the violence that's happening, and I tell people, I've been a part of many protests and a lot of activism, and I, I still view the world through that lens of literally, the struggle is eternal. Like, we're not here to suffer, because God wouldn't want us to suffer, but we definitely are here to struggle to make this a better place. And so looking at that, the different topics that are brought up that are oftentimes put in our face through the media and other places, one of the things I tell people, be clear with your own agenda. I don't think being sympathetic or empathetic for other people is wrong. I think it's the right thing to do. But that doesn't substitute having your own agenda. And when I talk about us as a community, Black folks, I say agendas. I'm clear that we're not monolithic and we're all different. I'm clear that race is a construct, is not based on any real science. But that being said, racism is real and the consequences can be very deadly. So we live in a very real space dealing with real issues. With that being said, I think it's important when you're watching the news or hearing people bring things up, make sure that you're also clear that that group of people have an agenda. And that doesn't mean that we can't collaborate or that their agenda and your agenda is not the same. But I will say that, anytime you're in a room, just there's going to be politics. I'm not talking about electoral politics, but just the politics of people. And if you don't have an agenda of an agenda of your own, you might find yourself actually being a part of someone else's agenda. And with that being said, is that I don't know if that's a bad thing as long as you're clear about it, as long as that you're actively engaged and understand that this is someone else's agenda and that you're supporting it. But if you don't know that, take a step back and really think about what's important to you. Like we all have different things that are important. Make sure the things that are important to you that you're prioritizing those things. Like again, reparations is a big deal to me. I'm very concerned about the fact that in this capitalist country, and I'm not even like a big proponent of capitalism, that our inheritance was denied, and we're still owed it, and they need to cut a check. I'm not one of those people who want good policy as a substitute for cutting a check for money that's owed. It's a debt. So literally, good policies, education, all that stuff, do that. That should be without question. But cut the check. That may not be your thing, and that's okay. Just don't hate on my thing. And then when it might be your number 10 thing. It's my number one. When you get around to it, we can collaborate. And then another big deal to me is the sanctions on Zimbabwe. I think it's wicked that over 20 years there's been sanctions on a small landlocked African country that has never done anything to the United States, but yet they've been under siege, and their economy and their way of life has been constantly tried to be undermined and destroyed. My co-founder, Christopher Mapindera, is also from Zimbabwe. And again, there's so many great things we've done in Zimbabwe. It feels horrible that when I go there, that I have to know that the U.S. government that I pay taxes towards. So let's think about that. I don't agree with the policies of the U.S. government in Zimbabwe, but our tax dollars go towards all these policies. So, being engaged, is important that we not only hold ourselves accountable and speak out against things that you don't want to have done in your name. And so that's important. The issue of gun violence in the Black community in the United States. I, that's a top agenda item. There's no way in the world guns aren't made in our community in a surveillance society where people's movements can be tracked and we can find anything and anybody that we want when they're being looked for, but yet gun violence is still in our community. And that's gun violence by civilians as well as agents of the government. The police shouldn't be murdering Black folks, and other Black folks shouldn't be murdering Black folks. We talk about a thing, and I love Black people, called Afrophobia, which is the fear and hatred of those that are perceived to be of African descent. There's no reason why those are things that we still have to deal with. Gun crimes were literally in the same communities, in the same places, with devices that are manufactured and then bullets that have to be replaced. There's no way that should even be possible. And then we put together that with the issue of drugs in our community when members of our community don't even have passports, and cocaine is actually grown in another country and has to be like grown, like has a season, has to be watered, has to have fertilizer, and then has to be harvested and then processed. Like to have all those things, we know darn well that we need to make sure that we hold all of ourselves, as well as these governments, agencies, and actors accountable. Because there's no way all that's done and it gets to my neighborhood because some young person is a kingpin. There's no kingpin I know that had like passports and airplanes and actually knew how to grow cocaine or coca. And I've said this before, like my first time seeing a coca plant was in Peru, and it looked like a little shrub leaf. And there's no way in the world that probably even the brothers and sisters that had taken crack in my neighborhood would even know what a coca plant looks like, but it made it to my neighborhood. Those are things that are top of my agenda. You might have other things that are important to you. You might want to save the whales first. You know, saving the whales is probably number 15 on my list. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to save my neighbors and my friends and myself. So my point is, when we see these things on TV and they're telling you that these are horrible things going on, we definitely need to be aware of it. And again, if these are things that we see as being important, we definitely should be sympathetic, empathize, but we should never let up another person dictate what our agenda is. You need to define your agenda based on your interests, and we can collaborate, which is always a good thing. Collaboration is awesome. But again, people who don't have an agenda can be easily manipulated. That's why, again, hating politicians and loving politicians is not a political strategy. So often, in much of the work we're doing, I have people bring up different presidents of different countries and tell me how bad the president is. Well, I love a lot of politicians that I know, but they're politicians and they do things that I disagree with. I have many loved ones that are in the law enforcement and they do things that I don't agree with. I have my loved ones, my father was in the military. I'm clear there's things about the military I don't agree with. With that being said, we're not going to wait for politicians to save us. It doesn't make sense. We couldn't live every 4 years or 5 years, depending on what country you're in, to determine if you were going to live or not. We need to take responsibility for our world right now. And I say world, even when you're saying your life is connected to a world. So literally, we got to take responsibility for what's going on around us because we're the adults in the room. We're the grown folks. There's no one else. We talk about Jesse Jackson. God bless him. Jesse is old. He did his part. Every generation out of relative obscurity must fulfill his destiny and portray it. I always say that. It's Frantz Fanon. It's not me. But that's what we're here. We're the ones that are here now. And we have to do something with what we have. I talked about just a few minutes ago about being thankful to God. Well, showing thanks is more than just saying it with our mouths, is actually what we do with our actions that shows our gratitude. And when it comes to violence in our communities or those are the things that matter to me, and they're number one on my agenda. And I'm doing, and we should do it in every way possible. And let me be clear, so often, we talk about these issues, and I just talked about politics. Electoral politics is when I say I'm not waiting for someone to save us. We're not waiting for an election. But there's all kinds of politics, electoral politics, legislative politics, constituent politics. Politics is in so many things. I'm saying there's anytime two people in a room, there's politics. So I'm not saying I'm having a conversation about don't be involved in politics, but putting the responsibility of making the world that you want to see in the hands of someone else is probably going to end up with a lot of disappointment. And that doesn't mean not hold people accountable. I'm saying hold yourself first, though, accountable. Work with other folks who have very similar agendas to you and leverage that collectiveness to build something that's helpful. We just got to having a bunch of homecomings, and I've been blessed. I get to have two of the best homecomings, full stop. I went to Tuskegee, had the best homecoming, and got to speak at my alma mater 30 years after I left. And to be able to speak at Charter Day at the convocation for homecoming is like a highlight in my life, like full stop. Like there's a lot of great things that happen, like getting married, graduating from Howard, uh, good friends of mine, myself winning my first elections, blah blah blah. But coming back to ski was everything. Like that was, and shout out to my main man Terod Robertson, who super helpful on the SGA. Shout out to Nick and everybody. Shout out on that. But we got to use these homecomings for to do more things to show our gratitude. And I think we're amazing, and we need to leverage that amazingness to do more. I went to Howard University, homecoming bananas, some straight amazing people, straight amazing opportunity experience, and I'm forever grateful for Dr. Lucius Walker, who got me in school there, also a Kappa frat brother of mine, who actually made my life super amazing. And so but these moments that we come back and we share with each other, these are the moments that we need to do more with to make sure we show our gratitude and fulfill our agenda. Because these are folks that oftentimes have similar interests. But our similar interests, we need to make sure we make it manifest into action. And we're not executing enough. I think, again, we're amazing. And what we've gone through as a people is like we're definitely amazing. Other people could not have done what we've done, even generationally. I don't believe in generational chauvinism. Every generation has, but we've made it through crack cocaine. We made it through AIDS. We made it through the worst recession since the Great Depression, multiple wars, not just one Vietnam. We've had multiple Vietnams. And we're not only are we still here, we're still here and moving forward. And I just want to say we're thankful for that, and just to know that we can do a lot more with it. And we have a lot more to do. So when you think about the things that are going on in this world right now, be encouraged. Like we've been given an opportunity to do something amazing. And we don't get to pick what our purpose is. So as long as we're fulfilling that purpose, it's gonna not only be all right, it's gonna probably be amazing. So we need to make sure we keep, tied into that. And I think so many of us, did believe or do things that now we look back on and say maybe this is not wasn't the right career or this wasn't the right decision. I think that's okay. But what I don't think is okay is sometimes when people make bad decisions, instead of admitting it, they end up doubling down on it because they're afraid to admit what they did was wrong. It was a wrong decision. So they literally will like say this is like there's some folks I know who, you know, have found professions that when they look back, you know, getting the MBA and working for somebody, they realize, you know what? I shouldn't have spent this whole life working for someone else. I should have been working for myself. But then some people feel that way. Then they get like real dogmatic. Oh no, you got to be corporate. Whatever you decide, like if you get the epiphany and say, figure out, even if after I'm 54, if after 54 years you realize this ain't it, be honest with yourself. Now you don't have to be mean about it or rude, but be honest with yourself. And if you still choose to be in the situation you're in, be honest with that. Many of our ancestors probably have done and been in situations that they ended up suffering through because they thought they had to. And I'm not saying that they didn't. Some of us didn't benefit from that suffering, but I don't think God was putting us here to suffer. And it probably would have been other ways that we could have done it if we showed our faith and said, you know what, God, I know you didn't call me to be in this position. I'm gonna do something else. And guess what? It might not work either. But don't give up. I think the biggest thing that we've shown the world as a people is that if you don't surrender, you ultimately still have a chance to do all the wonderful things that you've been put on earth to do. And there's plenty of people who've been destroyed. There's plenty of civilizations, communities that no longer exist, and they've gone through some horrible things, and they didn't deserve to have that happen. And when I talk to people about it, talk about, again, you can talk about Australia with the Aborigines, the indigenous folks here in North America, South America, the Caribbean. There's a lot of communities that didn't make it through the some of the most wicked things that this world has seen through white supremacy ideology, colonialism. The fact that we've been able to make it through all that, there's no trophy, there's no award. But what that is, that shows us that even when they bring out the kitchen sink, we're unstoppable. So we might have some losses, you know. So no one, and let's be clear about our losses. No one plays basketball, any sports, thinking they're not going to get scored on. We've been scored on. There's folks that actually, there's the folks that have shot the lights out on us. But as long as we don't give up, as long as we don't surrender, this life, these ideas, we'll never have anything else that will put us in a situation that can cause us to have problems that we can't overcome. And we need to be the ones that are clear about those problems, because the fulfillment of the promise that God has given us, the gratitude we show is through our actions. And we need to make sure that those actions are protected or in a safe space where we're appreciated and recognized for our abilities and appreciated for our achievements. And I think when we really see how we can do that with I Love Black People, check our website out, check the social media. With your help, we can build all these things and then use that as a foundation to even build even more things that probably haven't been thought of. So with that being said, I just want to thank everyone for sharing this moment with us. As I always leave out, I am because we are, and I'm so thankful for you.
This is I Love Black People Radio on HUR Voices, Sirius XM Channel 141. I Love Black People is more than a radio show. I Love Black People is a call from our ancestors to protect us from racial profiling all across the world. Go to iloveblackpeople.com and become a member today. Membership empowers you to live fearlessly and protect Black people globally from racism and xenophobia. Join us today and become a member of our global network with an online global green book with Black-owned and Black-friendly businesses to protect you and your community. Membership is free, and with you, we will become 10 million strong worldwide. I am because we are. Special thanks to Aflac for supporting I Love Black People Radio.